I can't marry a low-life man like you.
Ethan Cole never expected the woman he loved to destroy him in front of everyone he cared about. 1 second, he was on one knee beneath the glittering lights of the Hart penthouse, holding a ring he'd spent years saving for. The next, her voice cut through the room like a blade. "I can't marry a low-life man like you." Laughter erupted, quiet at first, then cruel, growing as phones lifted to record his humiliation. But beneath the sting of her words, something far worse flickered in her eyes. Fear. Not of him, but of what might happen if she said anything different. And as Ethan staggered to his feet, heartbreaking, he caught a whisper between Vanessa and her mother, something about the contract and removing him cleanly. This wasn't just rejection. It was the beginning of something much bigger. "Tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now?" And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Ethan Cole replayed the moment again and again as he stood outside the towering glass building, the cold night wind slicing through his thin suit. The city hummed below him, traffic, laughter, music life going on, as if the world hadn't just collapsed at his feet. But his world had. It shattered the moment Vanessa's voice rang out over the marble floor, clear and sharp, echoing against crystal chandeliers like a verdict. Even now, the memory burned behind his eyes. The soft gasp from someone's grandmother, the widening smirk on Vanessa's brother's face, the way Miranda Hart, Vanessa's mother, didn't hide her satisfaction as she tilted her wine glass as if she'd been waiting years for this moment. He didn't run at first. He couldn't. His knees had locked, the ring box still open in his palm, the diamond trembling under the chandelier's harsh light. He remembered Vanessa stepping back, distancing herself physically the same way she had emotionally long before tonight. He simply hadn't seen it. "You should have known better," someone muttered behind him. A snicker followed. Then, "Record this, it's going viral." That was when Ethan finally moved. He didn't remember putting the ring back in his pocket. He didn't remember pushing past waiters or bumping shoulders with guests who didn't bother hiding their disgust. He only remembered the final sound before the elevator doors closed, the faint whisper of Vanessa's voice, not meant for him but carrying anyway. "Is it done now? Can we finally move on with the contract?" A second voice, colder, sharper Miranda's. "He'll disappear. Men like him always do. You just gave him the final push." He slammed the elevator button with shaking fingers. The doors shut, sealing him away from the polished world he had tried so desperately to belong to. He'd thought the humiliation was the worst part. Now he wasn't so sure. Hours earlier, before all of this, he'd stood in front of his tiny bathroom mirror, adjusting a borrowed tie. His hands had trembled from nerves, not fear. He believed tonight would change his life for the better. He imagined Vanessa saying yes, imagined the soft smile she wore when they first started dating, imagined her choosing him despite her world being nothing like his. She used to tell him he grounded her, that he was the only person who saw her as more than a heart heiress. He believed her. He built dreams around her words. He molded his future around a hope he didn't know was manufactured. He spent weeks planning. He sold his motorcycle as last connection to his father to afford the ring. He consulted her friends about her favorite flowers, her favorite colors, her dream proposal. Every detail was meant to show her how deeply he loved her. But none of it mattered. As he stood on the sidewalk now, watching taxis blur past through teary vision, the greatest question gnawed at him. Why did she stay with him for 2 years if she despised him so much? The rain started lightly, soft droplets scattering across the pavement. A passing car sprayed water along the curb, soaking the hem of his pants. But Ethan barely flinched. He felt numb, suspended between heartbreak and disbelief. He pulled out his phone. Dozens of notifications lit the screen, messages from coworkers, college friends, even numbers he didn't recognize. Most were short bursts of shock or pity. Some were jokes. A few were cruel. But the ones that hurt most were the photos and videos already online. The moment Vanessa rejected him, slowed down and edited, captioned with phrases like, "Know your level, king," and "When the goldfish dates the shark." His humiliation was now entertainment. Strangers were laughing at the ruins of his life. He shoved the phone into his pocket, chest tightening. He wanted to go home. He wanted to sleep for a week, maybe a month. He wanted time to erase everything. But his feet didn't move toward the train station. They carried him in another direction toward the past. His father's memory rose unbidden. Not the warm parts, the laughter, the smell of gasoline on his clothes, the pride he carried in his small auto shop. Ethan remembered the pain, the scandal, the way people whispered that his father was a thief who cheated a business partner. They never had proof, but rumors were enough. The auto shop closed. His father's health declined. Ethan watched the strongest man he knew break under weight he didn't deserve. There was always more to that story. Ethan felt it deep in his bones. And tonight, hearing Miranda's cold confidence, the strange comment about the contract, it sent a chill down his spine. He thought Vanessa loved him. He thought he was finally building a future, separate from the shadow of his father's disgrace. But what if he had been chosen for a reason that had nothing to do with love? He stumbled toward the bus stop, rain dripping from his hair, his breath fogging in the night air. His mind replayed every detail of the past few months. Vanessa's sudden interest in his father's old property, her offhand questions about paperwork he never understood, the gentle insistence that he let her family's lawyers review everything for his own benefit. Back then, he was touched. Now, he felt sick. He waited for the late bus, surrounded by neon reflections shimmering on wet pavement. Each passing minute carved a deeper crack in his heart as puzzle pieces began aligning into a shape he didn't want to see. When he finally boarded, collapsing into a rattling seat by the window, his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a notification or a message. It was a short, anonymous text. "Get out while you still can. They never meant for you to stay." Ethan stared at the words, breath faltering. Someone knew something, something dangerous, something connected to Vanessa, something connected to his father. The bus rumbled through the quiet streets, but his mind was louder, full of betrayal, broken pieces, and a mystery he never meant to uncover. He closed his eyes, swallowing the ache in his throat. Everything he thought he knew about the last 2 years felt like a script someone else had written. And though his heart begged for peace, for numbness, for sleep, his instincts whispered something he could no longer ignore. This wasn't simply rejection. This was the beginning of the truth. The apartment felt smaller than ever when Ethan pushed the door open, the hinges creaking the way they always did. Normally, the sound comforted him, grounding him in the familiarity of home. Tonight, it scraped across his nerves. He stepped inside, slowly, letting the silence settle around him like dust falling onto forgotten shelves. The cheap lamp on his side table flickered when he switched it on, casting a weak yellow glow that barely reached the far corners of the room. He stood in the middle of the living room, still soaked from the rain, unable to decide whether he wanted to scream or collapse. The proposal scene replayed behind his eyes with cruel precision, Vanessa's dismissive stare, the way her mouth curled around the word lowlife, and the laughter that followed, like a chorus rehearsed by fate itself. His phone buzzed again. The sound jarred him, snapping him out of the spiral just long enough to pull the device from his pocket. More messages, more videos, more strangers saying everything they thought about him but didn't know. One thumbnail froze as he hovered over it. The exact moment Vanessa stepped away from him, her expression a mixture of disdain and something else. Fear? He couldn't shake that. He tossed the phone onto the couch before it vibrated the life out of him. The apartment was silent again, just the hum of the old refrigerator and the dim rustle of traffic several floors below. He peeled off his wet jacket and sank into the couch, sinking deeper, as if the cushions could make him disappear. His mind drifted, back to the beginning, back to the day he met Vanessa Hart. He remembered it clearly, clearer than the proposal disaster. Even, he had been working at a small community event, volunteering to tune up cars for free. She had strolled in wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy sky, her heels clicking on the pavement like she thought she was stepping onto a runway rather than cracked concrete. She'd handed him her car keys and said she needed an oil change, but her voice had been strangely soft, almost embarrassed, as if she wasn't used to asking for anything. They talked, they laughed. He made her smile in a way he didn't see again until months later, brief moments that now felt like stolen sunbeams instead of genuine warmth. Back then, she didn't seem cruel. She didn't seem trapped either. She was simply lonely. At least that's what he believed. As the months passed, he fell deeper, missing red flags that he now saw bright as neon, the way she cringed whenever he mentioned his father, the way she rushed through conversations when her mother called, the way she insisted on knowing everything about the old auto shop but brushed off his questions about her family's business. There had been a night, he could still feel it, when she asked him if he'd ever consider signing over parts of the property to her family just for safekeeping. She framed it as love, security, a future together. He didn't sign. Something felt off, but he never imagined it was part of a plan. Not until tonight. He pressed the heels of his palms into his eyes, trying to push the memories away, but they flooded him faster. His father's face appeared next. A blend of weariness and stubborn pride. He could hear the voice he hadn't heard in years, calm, steady, and trying so hard to be strong, even as everything fell apart. His father had been destroyed by rumors tied to a partner he never named. Ethan never asked for details. He didn't want to watch pain surface in the last man he respected. Now he wished he had. His father died with his integrity questioned, his shop closed, and his livelihood stolen. Ethan had always believed it was bad luck or some unfortunate misunderstanding. But after what he saw tonight, after Vanessa's whispered conversation about a contract, those old facts twisted into something sinister, he stood abruptly, needing to move, needing to breathe. The apartment felt claustrophobic, air thickening with memory and possibility. He stumbled into his bedroom, opened the closet, and reached for a cardboard box shoved into the top shelf. Dust coated his fingers as he pulled it down and carried it to the kitchen table. He hadn't opened this box in years, not since his father's funeral. Inside were old receipts, faded photographs, scraps of paperwork that once belonged to the auto shop, and a letter, sealed, his name written across the front in his father's handwriting. Ethan froze. His breath hitched, and for a moment the room felt too quiet, too waiting. He slid into a chair and broke the seal. The paper crinkled as he unfolded it. His father's words stared at him in wavering ink. "If you're reading this, son, then I wasn't strong enough to fix what was taken from us. There are people who wanted our land for reasons they'll never admit. They destroyed my name to get it. I don't want them to destroy yours. Be careful who you trust. Protect what's ours." Ethan's hand trembled. His father never talked this way, not unless the threat had been real. He continued reading. "A woman came to see me before everything went wrong. She claimed she wanted to help, but I could see the hunger behind her kindness. Her name was Miranda." The letters blurred. Miranda Hart, Vanessa's mother. His chest tightened. He gripped the edge of the table until his knuckles whitened. His father had warned him years before he ever met Vanessa that Miranda Hart was involved in the scandal that destroyed their family. He thought coincidence was cruel sometimes. Now he realized it was strategy. He set the letter down, staring at the curling edges. Was Vanessa part of her mother's scheme from the beginning? Or had Miranda used her like a pawn, pushing her into a relationship meant to secure Ethan's consent on paperwork he never signed? His phone buzzed again from the couch. One buzz, two, three. Reluctantly, he walked over and checked the screen. A comment notification popped up on a viral video. He should disappear. Guys like him never learn. His jaw clenched. He scrolled. More comments. Some mocking, some cruel, some dangerous. But one stood out among the noise. A message request from an unknown account. "They tried to ruin your father. They'll try to ruin you too. Don't ignore this. Find the truth." His fingers hovered. He swallowed hard. This was no longer heartbreak. It was a warning, a trail, a beginning. He looked around his tiny apartment, every crack, every stain, every piece of furniture, worn by years of struggle. This place held more honesty than any room he had stepped into with the Hearts. He didn't feel powerless anymore. He felt awakened, but beneath the rising determination, grief still sat heavy in his chest. He had loved Vanessa for who he thought she was. He had imagined a future with her, imagined building something real despite their differences. Now he couldn't tell which parts of their relationship had been genuine and which had been manipulation tied to a contract he wasn't supposed to question. He sat on the couch again, the apartment dark, except for the dim kitchen light behind him. He stared at the letter on the table, the ink glowing faintly. His father had seen the danger coming. Ethan had walked right into it. The betrayal cut deeper than Vanessa's rejection. It reached into the past, into his bloodline, into everything he thought he understood about the world. And somewhere in the shadows of that realization, something hardened inside him. He wasn't disappearing. Not this time. Not the way they expected. Tonight they had humiliated him. Tomorrow, he would begin to uncover why. The next morning crept in slowly, pale light, leaking through Ethan's thin curtains like it was afraid to enter. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Vanessa's face, perfect makeup, flawless hair, and a stare cold enough to shatter whatever remained of the man who once believed she loved him. But now that the initial shock had dulled into a raw, throbbing ache, something else demanded his attention. The letter from his father. He sat at the kitchen table, the letter unfolded in front of him. His father's handwriting seemed more haunting in daylight. Each sentence, a ghost whispering truths Ethan wished weren't real. A woman named Miranda. His father had written that line with such certainty, as if he knew it would matter one day. And it did. More than Ethan ever wanted it to. The old auto shop suddenly felt like a crime scene. Instead of a relic of his childhood, Ethan hadn't visited it in years, not since the day it shut down. He didn't want the memories, the pitying glances from old customers, the empty bay that once held the heart of his father's livelihood. But now, the shop wasn't just a memory. It was a clue, and he needed answers. He grabbed his jacket, shoved the letter into his pocket, and left the apartment. The morning air was crisp, but felt harsh against his exhausted skin. The city was waking up, cars honking, coffee shops opening, people rushing past him with lives that had nothing to do with heartbreak or betrayal. For a moment, he envied their normalcy. The auto shop sat on a quiet street, corners overgrown with weeds. The old sign, Cole and Son Auto Service, hanging crooked after years of neglect. Ethan paused at the entrance, fingers brushing the rough surface of the metal door. He remembered helping his father paint that sign one summer, remembered the pride in his father's eyes when they stepped back to admire their work. Now the paint was chipped, the colors faded, and the pride replaced by the ghost of a legacy stolen. He pushed the door open. The hinges groaned like they remembered him. Dust billowed in the stale air, and sunlight filtered through cracked windows, catching on abandoned tools and old oil stains. Ethan stepped inside slowly, every footstep echoing in the cavernous silence. It felt wrong, seeing the space this empty, like someone had carved out the soul of the shop and left only the shell. He walked toward his father's old desk, in the corner, where paperwork lay scattered beneath a layer of dust. He sifted through the documents, receipts, inspection forms, handwritten notes, but nothing jumped out, nothing, except a small photograph taped to the side of the desk. Ethan as a child, grinning proudly next to his father, while holding a wrench far too big for his tiny hands. He swallowed hard. As he continued searching, a voice startled him. "Haven't seen you here in years, kid." He turned sharply. An older man stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on a cane. His name surfaced instantly. Mr. Dalton, the neighbor who owned the hardware store across the street for decades. The old man's face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp. "Didn't expect anyone to be here," Dalton continued, stepping inside. Thought the city was demolishing this place soon. Yeah, Ethan replied quietly. I heard. Dalton studied him for a moment, then tapped the cane against the floor. Your father didn't deserve what happened. The words hit Ethan harder than he expected. You remember. Everyone remembers, Dalton said. A good man gets ruined. People pretend they didn't see it. But I saw things back then. Strange things. Ethan's pulse quickened. What kind of strange things? Dalton walked slowly toward the desk, eyes scanning the room, as if revisiting old memories. The week before your father's reputation went down the drain, I noticed two men in suits coming here late at night. They weren't customers. Didn't look like they belonged anywhere near a mechanic's shop. One of them was tall, wore a gray trench coat. The other kept looking around like he expected someone to catch them. Ethan absorbed the description. Did you tell anyone, son? Dalton said with a bitter smirk. Those men weren't the kind anyone talked about. The moment I saw them, I knew trouble was coming. Ethan's stomach tightened. Did you recognize them? Not at the time, Dalton admitted. But a few years later, when I saw a certain woman on TV during a press conference. He hesitated. Let's just say she had the same presence as the woman who visited your father the day before everything fell apart. Miranda. It had to be Miranda. Ethan felt his chest constrict, anger beginning to simmer beneath the surface. Why would she be involved with my father? Dalton shook his head. I can't tell you the why, but I can tell you the result. After she visited, everything went downhill. A week later, rumors started. A month later, the shop was closed. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the old man's words. Everything aligned too perfectly to be coincidence. His father had been destroyed, and Miranda Hart had been involved. Now, years later, Vanessa, Miranda's daughter, had been with him, pushing paperwork at him without explanation. This wasn't coincidence. This was generational manipulation. Be careful, son, Dalton warned. Families like theirs don't lose. Not without taking someone down. Ethan nodded, though fear coiled tightly in his chest. Thank you, he managed. Dalton left, the cane tapping rhythmically as he walked away. Ethan stayed there for a long moment, surrounded by dust, silence, and the weight of truth pressing against him like a crushing tide. He turned back to the desk and resumed searching. Beneath old manuals, he uncovered something he hadn't seen before. A thick folder labeled Redevelopment Project Proposal. He opened it and felt his heart jolt. The logo on the first page belonged to Hart Real Estate. Blueprints, land valuations, notes about acquisition strategy. His father's property was a prime target, had been for years. As he flipped through, he found a page with a section marked Heir Signature Required. The name printed below was his. Ethan Cole. He hadn't signed anything, but the page looked prepared. Waiting. His mind raced. Vanessa had asked him about signing random documents. Her mother had been involved in destroying his father. The auto shop had been coveted land. It all led to one conclusion that made Ethan's skin crawl. He had been part of the plan since the moment he met Vanessa. He closed the folder, feeling his pulse pounding in his ears. The truth was too big to ignore now. This wasn't the aftermath of a bad breakup. This was the continuation of a fight his father had lost, and a fight Ethan had unknowingly stepped into. He pocketed the folder, locked the shop behind him, and walked out into the cold daylight. His steps were heavy, but his purpose grew clearer with each one. Miranda Hart had manipulated his father. Vanessa Hart had manipulated him. The Hart family had been playing a long, ruthless game, but Ethan wasn't the same vulnerable boy who watched his father break. He wasn't the naive man who believed love could erase class and power. He was his father's son, and he was done being their pawn. As he walked toward the bus stop, his phone buzzed again. A new message, a single sentence. If you want real answers, you're looking in the right direction, but you're not alone. Ethan stared at the message, tension crawling across his skin. Someone knew what he'd discovered. Someone was watching. Someone wanted him to continue. But were they a friend? Or just another piece in the heart's deadly game? Either way, the path forward was no longer about heartbreak. It was about truth, justice, and the legacy his father had died trying to protect. Ethan didn't go home right away. The city felt different now, sharper around the edges, like every stranger's glance held a warning he couldn't yet decipher. His father's letter weighed heavily in his pocket, and the Heart real estate folder inside his backpack felt like a live bomb he wasn't prepared to carry. But he had no choice. This wasn't simply a family dispute. This was the past, reaching forward with claws, dragging him into a story he never chose to be part of. He headed straight to the Heart legal office. If the folder he found in the auto shop was legitimate, then the Hearts had been preparing to acquire his father's land through him. Long before Vanessa humiliated him, in front of hundreds, he needed answers, and he needed them now. The building loomed ahead, sleek glass panels and polished steel, a monument to power. Ethan hesitated at the entrance. A security guard eyed him as if sensing the storm inside him, but Ethan squared his shoulders and walked in anyway. His heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. He had no appointment, no lawyer, and no plan, but he wasn't leaving without clarity. The receptionist glanced up with the kind of stiff politeness designed for people who didn't belong in places like this. "Can I help you? I need to speak with someone about the Cole property." Ethan kept his voice steady. Her eyes flickered, recognition, surprise, then something cold. "Please wait here." She made a series of calls he wasn't meant to hear, but could feel in her tense posture. Finally, a tall man in an expensive suit approached. He smiled with a professionalism too smooth to trust. "Mr. Cole," the lawyer greeted, extending a hand. "I'm Adrian Sloan. Please, come with me." Ethan followed him into a conference room that felt intentionally sterile. White walls, chrome fixtures, spotless glass table. Adrian shut the door quietly. "I understand you have questions," he began. "I found documents," Ethan said, placing the folder on the table. "Documents about my father's land. Documents that mention me." Adrian didn't look surprised. Instead, he sighed, as though Ethan were a child misunderstanding a simple rule. "Mr. Cole, you must understand that your father's property is part of an ongoing redevelopment project. Our firm simply handles the legal logistics." Ethan's jaw tightened. "My father was destroyed because of this project." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Your father faced financial issues of his own making." The cold dismissal sparked something sharp inside Ethan. "You don't get to rewrite the truth. I know Miranda Hart visited him before everything went wrong. And I know your firm prepared paperwork with my name on it, years before I ever met her daughter." A flicker barely noticeable passed through Adrian's eyes. Then he smiled again, practiced and hollow. "Mr. Cole, I think emotions are clouding your recollections. If you'd like, we can arrange for a legal professional to walk you through any misunderstandings." Ethan leaned forward. "I want copies of every document your office has ever drafted involving the Cole property. Now." Adrian's expression hardened. "That won't be possible. Those documents are confidential." The words hit Ethan like a wall. He felt himself tightening, fists clenching in frustration. "They involve me, and my father, still confidential," Adrian replied. "And Mr. Cole, your presence here today is rather concerning. You've been trending online since last night. Some of our staff were worried you might come here. Upset. We want to ensure your behavior doesn't escalate." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Are you calling me unstable?" "Not at all," Adrian said gently. "But you must understand, you're emotionally compromised. Should you choose to pursue this matter aggressively, we'd have no choice but to protect our interests, even if that means presenting evidence that paints you in a less favorable light. A threat. A polished, legally packaged threat." Ethan stood. "I'm not afraid of you." "Not yet," Adrian murmured. "But you will be, if you keep digging." Ethan didn't wait for more. He snatched the folder, left the room, and walked as quickly as he could without looking like he was fleeing. Outside, he breathed in cold air, chest heaving. He'd expected resistance, but not the confidence, the certainty with which Adrian dismissed his father's suffering. It wasn't just legal maneuvering, it was ownership. These people believed they owned the truth, and they believed they owned him. His phone buzzed again, a notification from social media. Against better judgment, he opened it. A new video had surfaced, edited footage from the proposal, twisted to make him look aggressive. The comments were vicious. Dude needs therapy, not a wife. No wonder, she said no. He looks dangerous. His hands shook. This wasn't random internet cruelty. This looked deliberate, coordinated. He turned off his phone and kept walking, unsure of where to go, until his feet led him somewhere quieter, the small local newspaper office where his father's scandal had first been written about. Inside, the building smelled of old paper and ink. Ethan asked to speak with someone who remembered the case, and after some searching, they led him to a back room where an older journalist named Marianne Foster sat hunched over a cluttered desk. She looked up with a tired curiosity. "You're Ethan Cole, aren't you?" "Yes," he said softly. "I'm trying to understand what really happened to my father." Marianne gestured for him to sit. "Your father's story. It never sat right with me. But back then, the Harts had influence. They had connections. Stories disappeared. Sources grew quiet. Was there any proof of what they accused him of?" Ethan asked. "Not concrete proof," Marianne admitted. "Just allegations. Rumors, financial inconsistencies that appeared out of nowhere, documents that contradicted themselves. It felt manufactured." The room spun slightly. Confirmation of what he'd feared. Marianne continued. "I reached out to the Harts once for comment. A young Miranda Hart sent a cease and desist within hours. After that, no one dared question the narrative." Ethan felt a bitter laugh rising in his throat. "They're trying to do the same to me." "Oh, I know," she said, turning her computer monitor so he could see. "You've been trending all morning." His stomach dropped again, seeing the exaggerated posts, fabricated comments, the narrative twisting him from a heartbroken man into an unpredictable threat. It was happening again, the same playbook they used on his father. He left the newspaper office with Marianne's words echoing in his mind. People like the Harts don't erase one family and stop. They repeat patterns. As he stepped onto the street, his phone buzzed once more. A new email, no name, no subject, just 4 words. "You're not imagining it." Attached was a location and a time. A cafe downtown, tonight. Ethan stared at the screen, wind whipping around him. He knew walking into this meeting could change everything, but so could ignoring it. He closed his eyes briefly. He could almost hear his father's voice again. "Protect what's ours." He opened his eyes. Decision made. He was going. The cafe was tucked between a boarded-up bookstore and a laundromat whose neon sign flickered like it was struggling to cling to life. The kind of place no one would think twice about, a perfect hiding spot in plain sight. Ethan arrived 10 minutes early, the evening wind tugging at his jacket as he scanned the street for anyone watching him. After everything that had happened, paranoia came easily. He stepped inside. The warm aroma of coffee wrapped around him instantly, a stark contrast to the chill gnawing at his thoughts. A few customers sat scattered around 2 students hunched over laptops, an elderly couple sharing a muffin, a man reading a paperback with the kind of intensity that signaled he wasn't actually reading at all. Ethan's eyes paused on the man, mid-40s, trim beard, tired eyes that had seen too much. He looked up the moment Ethan sat down. "You're Ethan," the man said quietly, sliding a cup of black coffee across the table. "Daniel Price." The name didn't ring a bell, but the weight in the man's voice did. "You emailed me?" Ethan asked, keeping his tone guarded. "Yeah," Daniel replied. "And before you ask, no, I'm not here to scam you, hurt you, or drag you deeper into the spotlight you never wanted. I'm here because I know what the Harts did to your father. and I know what they're trying to do to you." Ethan's pulse jumped. "Who are you? Former employee of Heart Real Estate?" Daniel said. "Project analyst, fired 6 years ago." "Why?" Ethan asked. Daniel let out a humorless laugh. "Let's just say I didn't clap when they expected me to clap. I asked questions. It's 7. He reached into his worn messenger bag and pulled out a stack of papers, neatly clipped together. Ethan stared at them. His breath hitched. "I wasn't supposed to keep these," Daniel said. "But when you've been in that world long enough, you learn to protect yourself." The top sheet was a blueprint. Ethan recognized parts of it instantly. The area where his father's shop once operated, or still operated, technically, but barely standing. "What is this?" Ethan asked. "Evidence," Daniel said. "And your inheritance." Ethan frowned. "Inheritance." Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Your father's property sits on land that was projected to become the crown jewel of the Hart family's development expansion. Their entire future portfolio depends on acquiring that block. Without it, they lose millions. Investors pull out. Deals collapse." Ethan swallowed hard. "But they already own most of the area." "Most," Daniel corrected, tapping the blueprint. "Not all. Your father refused to sell. And the moment he refused, everything in his life shifted." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. "They destroyed him," Daniel continued. "Through bad press, financial sabotage, whisper campaigns, anything to paint him unstable and irresponsible. It didn't matter if the accusations were true. They only needed the rumor to stick." "That's exactly what they're doing to me," Ethan murmured, his throat tightening. "Of course they are," Daniel said. "Because you're the last obstacle. When your father died, you inherited rights to the land, rights that Hart Real Estate needs badly." Ethan exhaled slowly. "And Vanessa?" Daniel looked pained for a moment. "Vanessa's a complicated case. I don't think she wanted to be part of this. But Miranda, she handles her children the same way she handles mergers, with intimidation disguised as ambition." Ethan's jaw clenched. Part of him wanted to defend Vanessa. Another part wanted to erase her from his memory entirely. "You're telling me," he said, "that the woman I loved was pushed into dating me, just so her family could get access to my father's land?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. That silence said more than words could. "Look," Daniel finally said, "I don't know how much Vanessa knew, but I do know Miranda. And nothing she does is accidental. She doesn't tolerate loose ends. She doesn't tolerate resistance. And she sure as hell doesn't tolerate a low-income heir who won't sign what she wants him to sign." Ethan stared at the table, the cracks in the wood blurring as emotions swelled inside him. "Rage, disgust, heartbreak, betrayal," Daniel continued, his voice softer now. "I was fired after I questioned why we were pursuing properties already marked unfit for acquisition. Your father's land was one of them. The environmental reports were inconclusive. The zoning board had issues, but Miranda wanted it anyway. And when Miranda wants something, there are only 2 outcomes: compliance or destruction." Ethan rubbed his face with both hands. "Why tell me this now?" Daniel hesitated. "Because I saw the proposal video, the way they humiliated you, and when your name started trending, I knew exactly what was happening. You knew because they did it before," Ethan said quietly. "To you," Daniel replied. "And your father, and 3 other small owners before that." Ethan sat back, stunned. "Why hasn't anyone done anything?" Daniel shook his head. "People tried. A few sued, all lost. The Harts buried them under legal fees and public smear campaigns. One man lost his home, another lost his business, another lost himself." The cafe felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. Daniel leaned in again. "But you're the first one they targeted through a relationship. That's new. That tells me they're desperate. If you're going to fight them, you need to understand just how far they'll go." Ethan wasn't sure he wanted to hear the rest, but he needed to. Daniel pulled out a second pile of documents, emails, time-stamped memos, internal directives stamped confidential. "You're being watched," Daniel said. "Not directly, but your online activity, your public movements. They want to know if you plan to fight back." Ethan felt something twist in his gut. "And if I do, they'll ruin you," Daniel answered bluntly. "The same way they ruined your father. Only faster. Social media makes their job easier now." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, picturing the hateful comments from earlier, the ones calling him dangerous, unstable, a failure. They weren't random trolls. They were planted seeds. He opened his eyes again. "What do you want from me?" Daniel shook his head. "This isn't about what I want. It's about what you deserve. You deserve the truth, and you deserve a chance to defend what's yours." He slid a final document across the table. Ethan hesitated before picking it up. It was a redevelopment clause, a hidden addendum. The language was dense, but one line stood out. "Ownership reverts to the original heir if acquisition occurred under coercion or fraudulent inducement." Ethan's heartbeat accelerated. This means they could lose everything. Daniel nodded. "If the clause becomes public, if you can prove coercion, they collapse. But Miranda knows that. She buried this page years ago. If she finds out you have it, she'll come after me," Ethan finished. "Worse," Daniel said quietly. "She'll come after your reputation first, then your livelihood, then whatever you love most." Ethan absorbed that in silence, fingers tightening around the document. The cafe door chimed as someone walked in. Daniel immediately stiffened, his eyes flicking toward the entrance. A black SUV idled outside the window, tinted windows. No plates visible. "Ethan," Daniel whispered, "listen carefully. Leave separately from me. Don't go straight home. Don't go anywhere predictable, and keep that clause hidden." Ethan nodded, adrenaline spiking. Daniel stood. "This isn't just about your father anymore. It's about stopping a cycle." Ethan rose slowly. "What happens now?" Daniel looked at him with a mix of hope and warning. "Now, you decide whether you're willing to fight a family that's already decided your fate." Ethan didn't know if he was ready, but he knew he couldn't walk away. Not now. Not after everything they'd taken. He left the cafe through the back exit, heart pounding, and slipped into the alley. The SUV remained parked out front, engine humming like a beast waiting to lunge. He didn't know who was inside, but he knew one thing. The Hearts were already watching, and the war his father couldn't finish had just begun. The next 48 hours unfolded in a haze, one where Ethan could feel the ground shifting under him, but he hadn't yet seen the direction in which it tilted. The warnings Daniel gave him clung to his thoughts like wet cloth. Every shadow on the street felt like a follower, every glance from a stranger like a test. He walked faster, kept his head down, avoided patterns, avoided home until exhaustion drove him back. But even then, he didn't sleep, because Vanessa Hart was everywhere. Her name, her face, her perfect, curated image. It plastered every social feed, every trending sidebar, every gossip account hungry for a new narrative to tear apart. Ethan had already been humiliated at the proposal. That alone would have trended for a week. But the new headline, that sent the internet into a frenzy. Hart heiress engaged to investor Marcus Langford. A man whose wealth dwarfed Ethan's existence. A man who looked carved from privilege. A man who symbolized exactly what Miranda wanted in her family's orbit. And above all, a man Ethan had never met but suddenly felt like the final nail in a coffin buried long ago. The worst part wasn't the news. It wasn't the photographs, though they were painful enough. Vanessa in his suit jacket only days ago, now wrapped in Marcus's tailored embrace. The lighting was soft, their smiles perfectly rehearsed, their bodies angled in ways that signaled romantic familiarity. No, what crushed Ethan was the caption, a partnership built on trust, vision, and shared future goals. The message was subtle but unmistakable. Vanessa's future was with someone of her status, someone worthy, someone not him. Before he could process the betrayal, a second video surfaced Marcus giving Vanessa a ring the size of Ethan's monthly rent, slipping it onto her finger as cameras flashed. She smiled as if she had never been part of Ethan's world at all. He wanted to shut it out, but it kept playing, over and over, because the internet wouldn't let him forget. He stayed in his apartment as hours blurred, scrolling until his vision blurred too. His heart didn't break cleanly. It shattered in slow motion. Every notification felt like someone tugging at the pieces. Finally, he forced himself to stop. He tossed the phone aside as if it were infected. Maybe it was. Maybe all of this was meant to poison him, weaken him, before he even began fighting. But he wasn't that boy anymore. Not the one Miranda expected him to be. Not the pawn he had unknowingly played. He picked up Daniel's files again, flipping through the memorandums, the directives, the redevelopment clauses. Every page strengthened his resolve. Every line, every concealed addendum whispered the same truth. His father had been right, and Ethan had inherited more than land. He had inherited a war, but if the hearts expected him to crumble under the emotional blow of Vanessa's engagement, they underestimated him. Because heartbreak wasn't the end, it was the ignition. He showed up at the charity gala uninvited. The very idea made his stomach twist, but Daniel insisted it was the best chance to gather intel to see how Vanessa, Miranda, and Marcus interacted in public, to observe their dynamic, to confirm the theory Daniel had quietly suggested. Marcus wasn't just Vanessa's fiancé. He was a financial lifeline for the heart's failing development empire. Ethan walked into the venue alone, dressed in the same black suit he wore at the proposal. Ironic, but symbolic too. The gala glittered like a scene from a movie. Tall glass ceilings, orchestral music, servers gliding through crowds with champagne flutes, balanced on silver trays. People laughed too loudly, smiled too brightly. Performing wealth like it was theater, eyes darted his way, whispers following. That's him. The proposal guy. Why is he here? But Ethan kept moving. He didn't come to play their game. He came to expose it. He pretended to study the artwork on display, drifting through the crowd, while deliberately appearing unfazed by the stares, his heart hammered despite his calm exterior. Then he saw her, Vanessa, radiant in a floor-length silver gown, her curls pinned loosely around her shoulders in a style he once helped her with before parties. She was laughing at something Marcus said, laughing too loudly, the way people laugh when they know cameras are near. Her smile was perfect, her posture flawless, her eyes empty. It should have ruined him. Instead, it clarified everything. She caught sight of him. The smile froze, her breath hitched, her hand dropped from Marcus's arm. For a second, her facade slipped, and the guilt washed across her face like a crack in polished marble. Then she looked away quickly, deliberately, as if he were a shadow she wished would disappear. Marcus, noticing the shift, followed her gaze. His jaw tightened slightly, possessively, strategically. He didn't walk toward Ethan, but he didn't look away either. Ethan drifted deeper into the room, letting the music drown out the rising tension. He positioned himself near one of the pillars, watching, listening. The gala buzzed with chatter about the engagement, about Marcus's recent financial moves, about Miranda's rumored new project. He moved closer. Careful not to draw attention, he blended in with a group of donors, pretending to admire a sculpture. The Cole property, Marcus murmured to Miranda, his tone low. Ethan's breath caught. He sidled slightly closer, pretending to sip champagne. Miranda's voice cut through the music like a blade. Don't mention that name here. Not tonight. He's here, Marcus said. Your daughter noticed him first. Miranda stiffened, then let out a cold laugh. Let him watch. Let him see what real power looks like. Ethan's grip on the glass tightened. Marcus continued. The land acquisition, are we proceeding, or do we need to clean up more loose ends? Clean up? Ethan's blood ran cold. Before Miranda could respond, a tray crashed somewhere behind them, drawing attention. Ethan stepped away before he was noticed, slipping into a side hallway. His breath came fast. His heart felt too loud. He leaned against the wall, absorbing the words that now carved themselves into his mind. Clean up. Marcus knew about the land. Both he and Miranda saw Ethan as an obstacle. A problem, not a person. But something else tugged at Ethan's awareness, something he'd witnessed only minutes earlier. Vanessa. He had seen fear in her eyes. Real fear. She wasn't as cold or indifferent as she tried to appear. Something inside her was breaking too. He walked deeper into the hallway, needing space to think. A door clicked open nearby. He froze. Vanessa stepped out of a powder room, wiping under her eyes, smudging mascara she'd tried to hide. When she saw Ethan, she flinched not in disgust, but in shock, in pain, in something messy and human she wasn't allowed to show in public. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Her lips parted. Ethan, what are you doing here? He stepped closer, but not too close. I could ask you the same question. You got engaged pretty fast. She looked away, guilt tightening her expression. It's not what you think. No, Ethan's voice cracked. Not with heartbreak this time, but with clarity. Then what is it? Because it looks like I was part of something bigger, something planned. Her eyes shimmered. I didn't want it to be this way. What way? He pressed. The way where you humiliate me in front of the entire city, or the way where your family destroys mine. She winced, like the words were a slap. Ethan, please, not here. Why not? He demanded. This is the world you chose. Her breath hitched. You don't understand? Then explain it, he said softly but firmly. Vanessa opened her mouth, but her mother's voice echoed down the hall. Vanessa. Both of them stiffened. Miranda swept into view, expression sharp as glass. Her gaze sliced through Ethan before landing on her daughter. Get back to the gala, Miranda said coldly. Both of you. Vanessa hesitated. A single hesitation small, but enough. Ethan saw it. Miranda saw it too. Her eyes narrowed. Now. Vanessa lowered her gaze and nodded, stepping away with the obedience of someone raised under iron rule. She walked past Ethan slowly, the air charged with everything unsaid. When she finally disappeared down the corridor, Miranda turned back to him. Her smile was slow, controlled, deadly. You should be careful where you lurk, Ethan. Not every room is meant for people like you. He met her gaze without flinching. You underestimated my father. You underestimated me. Miranda's smile sharpened. No, Ethan. I never underestimate threats. I eliminate them. He felt the words strike him like a cold wind. The conversation was over. He left the gala with more than he came for. Confirmation. A crack in Vanessa's loyalty. Proof of Miranda's ongoing schemes. And the knowledge that Marcus Langford was tied deeper into the land project than Ethan imagined. This wasn't a story about heartbreak anymore. It was a story about inheritance and the cost of truth. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Not after the gala. Not after the confrontation with Miranda. Not after watching Vanessa crumble and then reassemble herself into the perfect heart daughter right before his eyes. He'd gone home, locked the door, paced the living room until dawn. Every word he'd overheard replayed in his head, the whispered clean up, Marcus's calm questions about acquisition, Miranda's chilling promise. I eliminate them. The hearts were no longer shadows in his past. They were standing right in front of him, teeth bared. But beneath all of that, one moment haunted him most. The way Vanessa looked at him before she walked away. Not with hatred, with regret, as if she were silently begging him to save her from the prison she'd willingly stepped into. He didn't know what to do with that. He didn't know if he even cared anymore. By noon the following day, he forced himself out of the apartment. Daniel had asked him to stay alert, to gather information, to watch how the hearts moved, and Ethan wasn't going to waste the advantage. He'd stumbled upon their fear of him. Subtle, but visible. He had leverage now. He just didn't know how much. He headed to Daniel's cramped studio apartment near the river. When Ethan entered, Daniel was already at his cluttered desk, sorting through files like a man preparing for war. "You look like hell," Daniel muttered without looking up. "I met your friends last night," Ethan replied dryly. Daniel glanced up sharply. "The Gala," Ethan nodded. "Miranda, Marcus, and Vanessa." Daniel rubbed his temples. "You shouldn't have gone alone." "I wasn't alone," Ethan said, pulling out the memory card from his phone and placing it on the table. "My phone picked up part of their conversation. Not much, but enough." Daniel's brows shot up. "You recorded something." "It wasn't intentional," Ethan said. "The mic must have captured fragments while I was nearby." Daniel plugged the card into his laptop, eyes narrowing as he adjusted the audio. The recording was faint, voices muffled beneath orchestral music and clinking glasses, but a few phrases stood out clearly. "Coal property. Acquisition must proceed. Loose ends." Daniel froze. "This is huge." "It's not enough for court," Ethan said. "No," Daniel agreed, "but it's enough to scare them." Ethan leaned against the desk. "Miranda cornered me afterward, told me threats don't intimidate her." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Of course not. She's done this for 20 years without consequences." 20, Ethan repeated. "How many families?" Daniel hesitated, then answered quietly. "Too many. Your father was the first to fight back. After they crushed him, others didn't dare." Anger flared hot in Ethan's chest. "And Vanessa, was she part of this too?" Daniel sighed. "I told you Vanessa's a pawn, raised to obey, groomed to be an extension of her mother's ambition." Ethan bristled. "That doesn't excuse anything she did." "No," Daniel agreed, "but it explains why she looks like she's dying inside." Ethan didn't reply. He didn't want to feel sympathy. Sympathy complicated things. Sympathy made him weak, and weakness was the one thing he couldn't afford right now. Daniel shuffled through old documents, muttering under his breath. "If Miranda knows you have access to internal information, she'll move fast. She'll try to discredit you, maybe even push for legal action." "She already started," Ethan said. "The edited videos, the comments, the narrative that I'm unstable." Daniel grimaced. "That's her playbook. Once a lie is loud enough, truth becomes a whisper." Ethan exhaled shakily. "Then we make our whisper loud." Daniel looked up, eyes narrowing. "You're serious about fighting?" "I don't have a choice," Ethan said. "They took everything from my father. They humiliated me. They're threatening my future. I'm done letting them win." Daniel studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "There's something you need to see." He handed Ethan a thin envelope. Ethan recognized the Heart Real Estate logo immediately, but the contents inside made his stomach twist. It was an internal financial projection, a desperate one. This doesn't make sense," Ethan whispered, scanning the numbers. "Oh, it does," Daniel said. "The Hearts are drowning. They've overextended on at least 4 projects. Investors are panicking. Miranda's empire is at the edge of collapse." Ethan's hands tightened. "And the land my father owned, the coal property, is their lifeboat," Daniel nodded. "They need it to secure a major development contract that would stabilize their entire chain of failing projects." "And Vanessa?" Ethan asked softly. "She's part of the deal," Daniel said. "Marcus only agreed to invest if the marriage strengthened the partnership. She didn't choose him. Her mother did." Ethan felt a strange mix of pity and anger pulling in opposite directions. Vanessa had hurt him, but she was clearly trapped too. A gilded bird, clipped wings, pretty cage. He didn't have long to dwell on it. Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked it, face shifting instantly into alarm. "What?" Ethan demanded. Daniel turned the screen toward him. A live headline read, "Ethan Cole spotted stalking Vanessa Hart at Gala security alert issued." Below it, a grainy still frame from the Gala hallway showed Ethan standing near Vanessa. The angle made it look predatory, manipulated, intentional. "What the hell?" Ethan breathed. Daniel swore under his breath. "They're trying to frame you as unstable, dangerous. They're setting the stage." "For what?" Ethan asked. Daniel looked at him with grim certainty. For your destruction. Public, legal, and personal. Ethan's pulse hammered. We need to act first. Daniel nodded. Then we need more evidence. Real evidence. Ethan swallowed. Where do we start? Daniel hesitated, then said, I know someone. Someone who might have access to archived heart files from years ago. Files Miranda buried. But contacting them puts both of us at risk. I don't care, Ethan said. Tell me the name. Daniel opened his mouth, but a sudden knock on the apartment door made both men freeze. 3 slow knocks, followed by silence. Daniel's eyes widened. Get in the bedroom. Now, Ethan didn't argue. He sprinted to the back room and closed the door, only enough to see through the crack. Daniel approached the front door. Who is it? He called. Silence. Then, a 4th knock. Quiet, deliberate. Daniel's shoulders stiffened. I'm not opening the door. A woman's voice filtered through smooth, controlled, and terrifyingly familiar. Daniel, open the door. We need to talk. Ethan's breath caught. Miranda. Daniel mouthed a curse and backed away from the door slowly. She can't know we're together. Stay hidden. Miranda's voice came again, calm as ice. I know Ethan is in there. Ethan's stomach dropped. Open the door, Miranda said, or I'll assume hostility. Daniel's voice cracked slightly. Miranda, you have no authority here. Authority is a matter of perspective, she replied. The doorknob jiggled. She was trying to open it. Daniel stood frozen. Ethan felt something sharp and primal rise inside him. Fear, yes, but also anger. He wasn't running anymore. He stepped out of the bedroom. Just as Miranda swung the door open, she stared at him. He stared back. Ethan, she said coolly, we need to settle this quietly. You and I both know the alternative gets unpleasant. He stood straighter. You don't get to threaten me anymore. Miranda's smile sharpened. I'm not threatening. I'm promising. Daniel stepped between them. Miranda, leave. She glanced at him, amusement flickering in her eyes. You were always predictable, Daniel. Loyal to a lost cause. Get out, Daniel said firmly. Miranda's smile vanished. You're making a mistake, she warned softly. Both of you. Then she turned and walked away, heels echoing down the hallway like a countdown. When the door finally closed, Ethan exhaled shakily. Daniel stared at him. She's accelerating her timeline. Ethan nodded. Then so are we. He didn't realize his hands were still shaking until he looked down. Miranda had found him, threatened him, cornered him. This wasn't just war anymore. It was survival. The moment Miranda's footsteps faded down the hall, Daniel locked the door, slid the deadbolt across, and then braced both palms against it as if expecting her to return with a battering ram. Ethan stood frozen in the center of the room, heart pounding against his ribs, pulse thundering in his ears. The air felt too thin, too sharp. Miranda's presence had been like stepping into the shadow of something monstrous, something that didn't need to raise its voice to promise devastation. Daniel turned, face pale. She shouldn't have found you this fast. We underestimated how closely she's monitoring you. Ethan swallowed, forcing air into his lungs. She said she knew I was here, which means she has eyes everywhere, Daniel muttered. Maybe digital tracking, maybe hired surveillance, maybe someone close to you is giving updates. Ethan flinched. Who? I barely talk to anyone. That's what worries me, Daniel replied. It means she's watching your movements, not your relationships. Ethan felt cold settle in his chest. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was reality. Daniel paced the room. She's escalating. That means she's afraid, which means we have leverage. But if we don't move soon, she'll beat us to the punch. Ethan steadied himself and crossed the room to the table, where all their evidence lay scattered. The redevelopment documents, the clause, the audio fragments, the financial projections showing the hearts drowning beneath the weight of their own greed. Every page was a weapon, one Miranda would silence him to destroy. What's the next step? Ethan asked quietly. Daniel stopped pacing. We need legal backup. Someone who isn't afraid of the hearts. Someone who believes in justice, not money. Ethan exhaled, thinking of the dozens of lawyers who would turn them away. The second Miranda's name surfaced. Do you know someone? Daniel hesitated. A pause long enough to reveal the risk behind what he was about to suggest. There is one person, a lawyer who used to work for a consumer protection group before going private. Brilliant, stubborn, impossible to buy. Her name is Maya Green. Will she help us? Ethan asked. She might, Daniel said, if she sees what we have, but we have to tread carefully. If Miranda senses we're building a legal case, she'll strike first. Ethan finished. Daniel nodded grimly. And when she strikes, it'll be public, devastating, and irreversible. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we don't give her the chance. They reached Maya Green's office in the late afternoon, a modest, glass-front law office wedged between a dentist and a local thrift store. Not the towering kind of place that smelled of money. This smelled of paperwork, late nights, and the stubborn pursuit of justice inside. The lobby was small but warm. A receptionist with kind eyes greeted them. Do you have an appointment? No, Daniel said. But she'll want to see this. He handed over a sealed envelope containing a summary of their findings. The receptionist scanned the label, eyebrows lifting slightly in recognition of Daniel's name, before she disappeared behind a partition. Minutes later, she returned. Ms. Green will see you. Ethan felt something shift, like a door opening inside him, letting in the smallest flicker of hope. Maya Green sat behind a cluttered desk in a room filled with case files, sticky notes, and half-drunk coffee cups. She was in her late 30s, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she didn't tolerate nonsense. She stood as they entered. Daniel Price, she said. I thought you were done sticking your neck out for lost causes. Daniel offered a tight smile. This one isn't lost. Not yet. Maya turned her gaze to Ethan, studying him carefully. You're Ethan Cole. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ethan said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. Maya gestured for them to sit. I've seen the headlines, the videos, the narrative being crafted around you. But that doesn't interest me. She tapped the envelope. This does. Start talking. Daniel explained everything from Ethan's father's downfall to the proposal humiliation, the manipulation, the whispered threats, and the evidence they had collected. Ethan added what he witnessed at the gala, including Marcus and Miranda's conversation. Maya listened with a stillness that felt almost surgical, her mind cutting cleanly through their words. When they finished, she leaned back, silent for several long seconds. Finally, she said, You have enough to open a case? Ethan's breath caught. But, she continued, you need more to survive it. Daniel frowned. More how? Maya opened a desk drawer, pulling out a stack of legal reference books and a blank notepad. Powerful families like the Harts build defenses years before anyone attacks. They have connections everywhere. Judges, journalists, politicians. They can stall, bury, twist, or poison any attempt to expose them. Ethan felt the hope in him shrink. So we're outmatched. Maya shook her head. Not outmatched. Outnumbered. But numbers don't win cases. Evidence does. And public opinion secures them. Ethan leaned forward. What do we need? 3 things, Maya said. 1. A paper trail linking Miranda to fraudulent acquisition strategies. 2. Proof that your father's downfall involved coercion or tampering. 3. Evidence Vanessa or Marcus participated knowingly. Ethan stiffened. Vanessa. Maya watched him closely. If she knew her mother was using you, even partially, it strengthens your claim. Ethan clenched his fists. I don't want to destroy her. Maya's expression didn't soften. Ethan, if you pull your punches, Miranda will not. Understand this. Anyone aligned with her voluntarily or through fear will be treated as an extension of her. This isn't personal. It's survival. Ethan nodded slowly, the reality sinking like stones inside him. How do we get the evidence? Maya began listing steps, each more daunting than the last. First, she said, we legally request access to archived Heart real estate records. They'll reject it, of course, but that's the point. It establishes that you're playing above board. Second, you file a preliminary injunction to halt development on your land. This forces a review of property documentation. And third, she continued, you quietly gather more from the inside. Emails, memos, contracts, anything that proves coercion. Daniel glanced at Ethan. Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew exactly what Maya was alluding to. You're talking about Vanessa, he said quietly. Maya folded her hands. She's the only one close enough to validate your father's claims, and yours. She's also the only heart who might be willing to break ranks. Ethan looked down. His emotions felt scattered, torn between the ache of betrayal and the lingering memory of the woman who once held him like he was her whole future. Even if she helps, Ethan said softly. It won't undo what she did. No, Maya agreed. But it might stop what's coming next. Ethan swallowed. What is coming next? Maya handed him a printed screenshot. One Ethan hadn't seen yet. It was a draft news article. Time-stamped, but not yet published. Ethan Cole under investigation for harassment and violent behavior toward Hart family. Below it were fabricated quotes, manipulated photos, and damning statements from anonymous sources. Ethan stared at the page until his vision blurred. They're preparing to bury you, Maya said quietly, completely, professionally, socially, legally, Daniel whispered. We're running out of time. Maya looked Ethan dead in the eyes. If you want to survive this, you fight now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Ethan felt something inside him, harden, not anger, not vengeance, but clarity, purpose. He stood slowly. What do I do first? Maya slid her business card across the desk. You go home. You lie low. You give me permission to file the injunction. And then, she hesitated, just for a breath, you reach out to Vanessa. Whether you hate her or not, she holds pieces of the truth we need. Ethan closed his fingers around the card. He didn't want to speak to Vanessa. He didn't want to relive the betrayal. He didn't want to see her face again. But he wanted justice more. I'll talk to her, Ethan said. Daniel exhaled in relief. Maya nodded once. Good. Then we're in motion. Ethan walked out of her office with the weight of the world on his shoulders, but for the first time, the weight felt like armor rather than chains. He wasn't running anymore, and the Harts had no idea what was coming. Ethan barely remembered the walk back to his apartment. The city blurred traffic lights smearing into long streaks of red and yellow, passing faces blending into anonymous shapes. His mind was too full, too loud. Maya's words echoed through him like warnings stamped onto steel. They're preparing to bury you. Fight now. Reach out to Vanessa. Vanessa. Her name alone made his chest tighten with a confusing mix of anger, longing, betrayal, and something far more painful, mourning. Mourning the girl he thought she was, mourning the future he once imagined with her, mourning the idea that their connection had ever been genuine. But Maya was right. Vanessa held answers. He needed those answers. Even if getting them tore him open, he pushed the apartment door open and immediately felt its wrongness, a shift in the air, a weight where there shouldn't be one. He stepped cautiously inside, scanning the room. Everything looked normal, untouched, but instincts honed by fear whispered otherwise. Then he saw it, a single envelope on his coffee table. No stamp, no writing, just placed perfectly at the center. Someone had entered his home. A cold shiver cracked down his spine. He approached slowly and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with printed text. You should have walked away when you had the chance. No signature, no initials, just the message. Ethan closed his eyes, fighting the tremor in his hands. The Harts weren't bluffing. Miranda wasn't bluffing. Every move he made was being monitored. He crumpled the note and tossed it aside. He couldn't afford fear anymore. Fear was what they wanted. Fear was the weapon they used best. He sat heavily on the couch and pulled out Maya's business card. His thumb brushed over the sharp edges as he ran through the plan. He needed to contact Vanessa, but how? If Miranda was watching him, she'd be watching her daughter even more. Before he could think it through, his phone buzzed. At first, he ignored it. He expected more comments, more hate, more edits of the Gala hallway clip, making him look like a stalker, but the buzz persisted. Longer this time. With a sigh, he picked it up. Unknown number. Message. We need to talk. Alone. His heart stopped. Vanessa. He didn't respond immediately. He didn't trust the timing. He didn't trust the number. He didn't trust her. A second message came. This isn't a trap. I swear it. I need to tell you something before she silences me too. Silences me. The words dug into him. He typed back, where? Seconds later, parking lot behind Rosebridge Mall. Midnight. Come alone, I will too. Midnight. A deserted location. Exactly the kind of meeting that could end with him disappearing into the news cycle as a cautionary tale. But he had no choice. He didn't have to wait until midnight for his nightmare to escalate, because at 5:17 p.m., 3 hard knocks pounded on his apartment door. Not like Miranda's smooth, threatening taps. These were forceful, official. Ethan froze. KCPD. Open up, police. His veins turned to ice. He walked toward the door in a daze and opened it. 2 officers stood there, stern-faced, hands resting near their belts. Ethan Cole. One asked, "Yes, you're under arrest for theft of equipment from your former workplace? You have the right to remain silent." Ethan blinked, confused. The officer grabbed his wrists and snapped cuffs around them. "You can explain at the station." Neighbors peeked from behind cracked doors as Ethan was led down the hallway. Shame burned through him. The humiliation felt too familiar, almost exactly like the proposal night. Once again, people recording. Once again, whispers. Once again, his life spiraling into public spectacle, orchestrated by invisible hands. Inside the police car, he sat stunned. They planted evidence. Miranda planted evidence. Daniel had warned him. Maya had warned him. But he wasn't prepared for how quickly the trap would spring shut. At the station, the nightmare worsened. A detective laid out items found in Ethan's storage closet at his workplace. Expensive tools and electronics he'd never seen in his life. Co-workers reported suspicious activity, the detective said, leaning back casually. They said you were angry, unstable after your breakup. One of them claims they saw you near the storage room several times. Ethan stared at the man. That's a lie. The detective shrugged. Prove it. I was fired months ago, Ethan argued. Apparently you kept a spare key. I didn't. Then, someone got the key from you. Ethan felt the room tilt. You don't believe me. The detective smiled slightly. Right now, I believe the evidence. Ethan's fists tightened. Evidence that was planted. By who? The detective asked, eyebrow raised in mock curiosity. The Hearts. The name hung in the air like a challenge. Ethan's mouth went dry. That's what I thought, the detective said, pushing the file away. Listen, Cole, you're in over your head, and if I were you, I'd think very carefully before making accusations that sound like conspiracies. Ethan's chest tightened with anger. This isn't a conspiracy. It's corruption. They've done it before. But the detective stood. We're done. Hours passed before Maya arrived, exhausted but furious. She slammed her bag on the table. This is absolute garbage, she told the detective outside. None of this holds in court. The evidence chain is sloppy, the reports inconsistent, and the witness statements contradict each other. Your setup is showing. The detective scowled. We have enough to hold him overnight. No, Maya snapped. Because I'm filing a motion for immediate release. And if you continue this nonsense, I will subpoena every officer involved. Within an hour, Ethan was released on bail. Outside the station, the night air felt harsh but freeing. Maya's expression simmered with outrage. You need to understand something, she said. That arrest, that wasn't just intimidation. That was Miranda, testing how fast she can break you. Ethan exhaled shakily. She planted everything. I didn't steal anything. I know, Maya said. The question now is, can we use her desperation against her? Because she showed her hand early. Daniel met them at the curb. You okay? Ethan shook his head. No, but I'm still here. That's enough for now, Daniel said. But we have to stay ahead. She'll keep escalating. Ethan clutched his phone. Midnight was approaching. I have a meeting, he said. Daniel frowned. With who? Ethan hesitated, then answered, Vanessa. Daniel's face tightened. Be careful. She's dangerous. No, Maya corrected. She's trapped, and people who are trapped can either become allies or unexpected threats. Ethan looked at the time. 11:32 p.m. He started walking. The Rosebridge Mall parking lot sprawled beneath flickering streetlights like an abandoned stage set. Wednesday nights were always quiet, but tonight felt eerily silent, as if the entire city was holding its breath. Ethan approached the far end of the lot, where shadows pooled between concrete pillars. Vanessa stood there, wrapped in a long coat, hair pulled into a loose twist. She looked fragile, nothing like the glamorous woman from The Proposal, or the confident fiancé, smiling in Marcus Langford's arms. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook. You came, she whispered. Why did you tell the press I stalked you? He said coldly, before she could speak again. She flinched. I didn't. Then who did? My mother, Vanessa said, voice breaking. She controls everything. My phone, my accounts, my calendar, even Marcus. She wants you gone, Ethan. She wants you destroyed. Ethan stared at her, anger cutting through him. You helped her. No, tears filled her eyes. Not willingly. She said she'd ruin you if I didn't reject you publicly. She said, and I know you'll hate me. She said humiliating you would make you back off from the land. Ethan felt the words like a blade. And you chose her over me. Vanessa covered her mouth, shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this. I didn't know she was going to frame you, or fire those shots at your reputation. I didn't know she'd go this far. You knew enough, Ethan whispered. I came because, her voice cracked, because I have proof. Proof she destroyed your father. Proof she's planning to do the same to you. Ethan's breath hitched. What proof? Vanessa reached into her coat with trembling fingers. A flash drive. Ethan froze. This has my mother's emails, Vanessa whispered. Memos. Internal directives. Recordings from meetings. Things she never meant for anyone to see. Her voice broke. I copied them. I'm going to run away after this. Marcus will cut me off. My mother will disown me. But you deserve the truth. Ethan took the drive, slowly aware that this moment, this tiny plastic object, could destroy the heart empire. Vanessa stepped closer. Ethan, I loved you. I still love you. But I was never free to choose you. He met her eyes. For the first time, he didn't see the woman who rejected him. He saw the woman who had been raised inside a gilded cage. And for the first time, he felt something other than pain. He felt pity and closure. Thank you, he said quietly. Vanessa swallowed hard. Be careful. She'll know soon. And when she does, a sharp sound cut through the night. A car engine revving. Headlights flared across the asphalt, blinding them. A black SUV, speeding toward them. Miranda had found them. Run, Vanessa screamed, and everything exploded into motion. The SUV barreled toward them with blinding intensity. Headlights slicing through the night like a predator's eyes locking onto its prey. For a split second, Ethan froze. It wasn't fear that stopped him, it was disbelief. Disbelief that Miranda would go this far, this fast, this openly. But then Vanessa shoved him with a force he didn't know she possessed. Move, Ethan, she cried. The shout snapped him back into his body. He grabbed her wrist and sprinted toward the concrete pillars. The SUV's tires screeched violently as the driver swerved, trying to cut them off. Gravel and broken glass scattered underfoot. The air vibrated with danger. They ducked behind a pillar just as the SUV slammed into it, hard enough to send a brutal shudder through the concrete. The entire structure trembled. Vanessa covered her mouth to stifle a scream. Ethan grabbed her shoulders. "We have to go. Now." She nodded, breath shaky, eyes wide with terror. Real terror, not the polished social dread she had always been trained to hide. This was raw, human, desperate. The SUV's engine roared again. "They're not giving up," Vanessa whispered, voice cracking. "She sent them to silence me." Ethan took her hand and pulled her deeper into the maze of pillars. They ran between shadows and fractured beams of light, moving as fast as their panic-driven legs could manage. Behind them, the SUV reversed with a violent jolt and began maneuvering through the lot with predatory slowness. "They're trying to corner us," Ethan said. "Head for the stairwell." They sprinted to the far corner, where the stairwell door glowed faintly under flickering fluorescent lights. Ethan yanked the handle. It resisted for a moment, rusted from disuse, then gave way, with a loud metallic groan. Inside, the stairwell was dim, cold, smelling of damp concrete and old gum. The door slammed behind them, muffling the outside noise. Their footsteps echoed as they descended rapidly, floor after floor, the concrete vibrating under each hurried stomp. Halfway down, Vanessa gasped, clutching the railing. I can't breathe. Give me a second." Ethan turned toward her. Sweat clung to her forehead despite the chill. She looked fragile, on the edge of collapsing, but footsteps above them froze him mid-thought. They weren't alone. Someone was coming down after them. A single set of steps, deliberate, heavy. Ethan's pulse spiked. "They're inside," he whispered. "We have to keep moving." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Come on, you can do this." She nodded through her panic and forced herself upright. They hurried to the lower levels, but when they reached the exit door to the ground floor, Ethan stopped cold. A shadow stood on the other side of the door, waiting. He instinctively pulled Vanessa back. Pressing her against the wall, she clutched his shirt, trembling. His mind raced. 2 attackers, one upstairs, one downstairs. They were boxed in, Vanessa whispered, barely audible. "What do we do?" Ethan's eyes darted around the stairwell. No fire escape, no second exit, nothing but concrete walls and danger closing in. Unless. He peered over the railing. Below them, the space between stair flights extended into the basement level, a drop, but a survivable one if they landed right. He pulled Vanessa close. "Do you trust me?" he asked. She blinked, startled by the question. "Yes." He didn't hesitate. "We jump." Her eyes widened in terror. "Ethan." The steps above grew louder. The door below rattled. No more time. He held her tightly. On 3. 1, 2. They jumped. The world tilted violently as they dropped into the dark. Ethan twisted midair, angling his body beneath hers. The landing was brutal, concrete meeting spine, but he cushioned most of her fall. Pain exploded through his back, but he bit it down. Vanessa groaned, shaken but conscious. Are you okay?" "No," Ethan gasped. "But we have to move." They scrambled to their feet and forced their way into the basement corridor. It was lit by a single buzzing bulb, casting more shadows than light. Rusted pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping occasionally into shallow puddles on the floor. Behind them, the attackers' footsteps resumed faster now. They had followed the plunge. Vanessa's breath came in ragged sobs. "They're going to kill us." "Not if we get out first," Ethan said. He spotted an old maintenance door at the end of the corridor. There, they ran toward it, shoes slapping through water. Ethan shoved the door open and found a narrow service tunnel, barely lit. Vanessa hesitated. "This looks dangerous." "It's more dangerous behind us," he said. "Go." She obeyed. The tunnel sloped upward. At the end, moonlight spilled through a metal grate. Ethan climbed first. pushing the grate aside with effort. It clattered onto pavement above, exposing them to the fresh night air. He pulled Vanessa up after him. They emerged in an alley behind the mall, quiet, secluded. Ethan checked behind them. No one yet. They took off running again. Only when they reached an abandoned loading dock did Ethan stop, chest heaving, knees weak. Vanessa collapsed against the wall, sobbing into her hands. Panic and grief mingled in every breath. "They want me dead," she choked out. "My own mother wants me dead." Ethan crouched in front of her, his own adrenaline wearing off into trembling exhaustion. "She wants silence. Not necessarily death, but she's willing to risk anything to keep control." Vanessa lifted her face. "I didn't mean for you to get dragged into this. I didn't know everything. Her voice cracked. "I didn't want to lose you." Ethan's heart twisted, but not with romance, with sorrow. "You already did," he said softly. Vanessa closed her eyes, tears streaking down her cheeks. She reached into her coat and pulled out something else. Another flash drive, slightly larger. "This one," she whispered, "contains recordings, meetings. Mom didn't know I kept backups. It proves what she did to your father and what she planned for you." Ethan's breath faltered. "Why didn't you give me this earlier?" "Because I was scared," Vanessa said. "She has eyes everywhere. She controls every part of my life. If she realized I betrayed her, she still might," Ethan said. Vanessa nodded. "I know." She looked up at him with hollow eyes. "But you needed this more than I needed safety." Ethan swallowed hard. "Vanessa, after this, your mother will turn on you. She already has." Their eyes met. No love, no romance, just two people bound by the same monster's shadow. Ethan stood. "We need to take this to Maya. Now." Vanessa pushed herself upright. "Okay." He turned toward the alley's exit, but paused because something felt wrong again. Too quiet. He scanned the street. A black sedan was parked at the curb. No lights. Engine off. Windows tinted. He felt Vanessa stiffen behind him. "It's them." "No," Ethan whispered. "Not yet, but someone is watching." Before he could decide whether to run or hide, the sedan's driver door opened. A woman stepped out. Not Miranda, not a hired thug. Maya. Ethan exhaled in relief and confusion. "Maya, what are you doing here?" She approached quickly, face pale, jaw tight. "I tracked your phone when you didn't answer." "Something happened, didn't it?" Ethan nodded. "They attacked us." Maya's eyes widened. "Is anyone hurt?" "We're fine," Ethan said, though his ribs disagreed violently. Vanessa stepped into the light. Maya's expression sharpened. "You," Maya said coldly. "You have a lot to answer for." Vanessa lowered her gaze. "I know." Ethan held up the flash drive. "She has evidence, real evidence." Maya's expression shifted, still wary, but suddenly more focused. "Then get in the car, both of you. We don't have much time." "Why?" Ethan asked. Maya unlocked the doors. "Because Miranda Hart just filed a restraining order against you. And an accusation." Ethan froze. "What accusation?" Maya looked him dead in the eyes. "She's claiming you kidnapped her daughter." The world tilted violently. Vanessa gasped. "What?" "No, I came willingly." Maya shook her head. "It doesn't matter what actually happened. She's controlling the narrative as we speak. We have one chance. One. If we don't get ahead of this tonight, Ethan, you'll be thrown in jail by morning." Ethan felt the truth settle like ice in his bones. The war wasn't coming. It was here. And Miranda Hart was no longer hiding. She was hunting. Maya drove like someone who knew exactly how fast she could go without drawing police attention. Her knuckles tight around the steering wheel. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, breathing hard, the adrenaline still pounding through him from the attack in the parking lot. Vanessa crouched in the back seat, arms wrapped around herself, trembling not from cold, but from the shock of realizing the full power of her mother's ruthlessness. Ethan stared out the window, city lights blurring into streaks of gold and blue. His mind replayed Maya's last words. "She's claiming you kidnapped her daughter. The accusation crawled under his skin like poison. "How bad is it?" Ethan finally asked, voice low and rough. Maya didn't look at him. "Bad enough that there's already a bolo issued for your vehicle." "What?" Ethan turned sharply. "How? Why?" "Because Miranda doesn't waste time," Maya said. The moment she realized Vanessa wasn't home, she made 2 calls, one to her PR team and one to law enforcement. She didn't just twist the story, Ethan. She inverted it entirely. "You're now the threat. You're the danger." Vanessa let out a small, pained sound. "This is my fault. I should have waited. I don't know, done something different." "No," Ethan said firmly, turning toward her. "This is her fault, not yours." Maya's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Vanessa, I need you to listen very carefully. If you come with us publicly, on record, you'll blow apart your mother's narrative. But if she convinces the authorities that you're in danger, they won't even listen. They'll assume you're coerced." Vanessa's throat tightened. "They won't believe me. Not unless we give them a stronger story," Maya said. "Something irrefutable." Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out the 2 flash drives. "This is irrefutable." Maya took one hand briefly off the wheel to grab the drives, holding them as if they were nuclear material. "If these contain what you both say they contain, then yes. But I need to review them, and I need to make secure backups before Miranda realizes anything is missing." Ethan tensed. "She'll already know, which is why," Maya said, turning sharply onto an industrial road. "We're not going to my office, or your apartment, or anywhere predictable." Vanessa leaned forward, gripping the headrest. "Where are we going?" Maya exhaled. "To someone who owes me a favor." 20 minutes later, they pulled into a rundown commercial district where the buildings leaned together like tired old men and streetlights flickered in unpredictable patterns. Maya parked behind a shuttered repair shop whose sign had long faded. Ethan stared at the place. "This looks abandoned." "That's the idea," Maya replied, stepping out of the car. She led them to a side door, tapped a long, rhythmic pattern, and waited. Locks shifted. A metal bar scraped. The door opened to reveal a narrow-eyed man in his late 40s wearing a hoodie and fingerless gloves. "Maya," he said, stepping aside. "Didn't expect you to knock on this door again." "I didn't expect to need to," Maya said. "But here we are." The man's gaze flicked to Ethan and Vanessa. "Guests. Temporary refugees," Maya replied. "And we need your equipment. All of it." He raised a brow. "You're asking for a lot. It's mating Mycon." Maya crossed her arms. "And you owe me," he sighed, then gestured them in. "Fine. Come on." Inside, the building transformed. It wasn't a repair shop at all. It was a tech bunker. Old servers hummed in a corner. Monitors glowed with streams of encrypted code. Tools lay scattered among gadgets Ethan couldn't name. "This is Kyle," Maya said. "One of the best forensic analysts I know." "Ex-analyst," Kyle corrected, dropping into a swivel chair. "Now I just fix people's laptops and make sure the wrong government agencies don't find what they're not supposed to find." Ethan's eyes widened. "Why are we here?" "Because," Maya said, "if Miranda is half as thorough as I believe she is, she'll erase every digital trail before we can get to it. We need someone who can crack her systems faster than she can cover them up." Vanessa looked terrified. "You think she knows the files are gone?" Kyle snorted. "If she has half a brain, and from what I've heard, she has more than half, she'll already be in full containment mode." Maya placed the flash drives on the desk. "Kyle, we need everything off these drives, decrypted, duplicated, and backed up onto a system she can't breach." Kyle whistled low. "Heart real estate. You sure about this?" "I'm sure." Maya said, "Do it." He hesitated. "This might take a while." "We don't have a while," Ethan said. "She filed a kidnapping report. They're probably tracking my phone." Maya nodded. "Kyle, shut down all external signals. We go dark." Kyle typed a string of commands. The lights flickered, and then the entire facility disconnected from the outside world, no signals going in or out. "Welcome to the blackout," he said. While Kyle worked, Maya pulled Ethan aside. They stood in the shadow of stacked crates, voices lowered. "Ethan, she's escalating too fast. Faster than even I expected. You need to brace yourself." "For what?" he asked. "For the possibility that Miranda plans to destroy you publicly before you can even get your case to court." Ethan frowned. "How?" "By shaping the narrative," Maya said. "By using Vanessa." He stiffened. "Vanessa came willingly." "That doesn't matter," Maya said. "Miranda controls media. She can flood the internet with manipulated footage, implying you're dangerous, obsessive, unhinged. Right now, she's painting a picture, and the more convincing the picture, the harder it will be to undo." Ethan's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "She's not unbeatable." "No," Maya agreed, "but she's undefeated." Ethan swallowed the fear rising in his throat. "Not for long." Maya studied him for a moment. "Good. Because we're about to start a war, she's never had to fight a public one." Before Ethan could respond, Kyle's voice cut through the space. Guys," he called. "You're gonna want to see this." They rushed over. Kyle had one of the flash drives loaded on a monitor. Dozens of folders glowed on the screen, labeled with dates, project names, internal memos. Kyle clicked open an audio file. Miranda's voice filled the room, cold and calculated. "If James Cole won't sell, make him irrelevant. Discredit his work, leak the tax discrepancies. We only need public doubt, not proof." Vanessa gasped, covering her mouth. Another file opened. "Use the daughter if she can gain the son's trust. He'll sign anything, but make sure he doesn't know the land is worth 10 times the proposed offer." Ethan felt physically sick. Heat crawled up his neck. His heartbeat thundered. "That's enough," Maya said tightly. "Shut it off." Kyle froze the screen. Vanessa stared at the floor. "I didn't know she said those things. I swear." "Ethan, I never heard those recordings." Ethan couldn't speak. His throat constricted. Rage and heartbreak blurred everything around him. But Kyle wasn't done. He opened one final document, this one stamped "Private Legal Strategy." It outlined a full smear campaign against Ethan, a timeline, talking points, prepared statements, even a list of targeted social media accounts. Vanessa's name appeared next to several items: deny relationship, frame, emotional instability, imply coercion. Vanessa stared in horror. I had no idea. She forged half of that. She used my accounts without telling me." Ethan finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "She planned my destruction years ago." Maya touched his shoulder lightly. "And now we have proof." Suddenly, pounding echoed from the front door. Kyle went pale. "No one should know we're here." Maya moved quickly. "Ethan!" "Vanessa, get behind the server racks." "Now!" Vanessa's breath hitched. Ethan pulled her close, guiding her behind towering metal casings. They crouched down, concealed by shadows and humming machinery. Kyle muted every system. Maya snatched a heavy wrench from the table and held it like she'd used one before. The pounding continued. "Open the door," a voice shouted. "Police!" Vanessa's eyes widened in terror. Maya whispered, "Stay quiet." Another voice followed, deeper and more commanding. "Search warrant for Ethan Cole. Open the door or we force entry." The pounding grew louder, more violent. Ethan gripped Vanessa's hand. She squeezed back. Outside, someone began counting down. 3, 2, 1. The door crashed open. Flashlights flooded the bunker. Boots thundered inside. Ethan held his breath as officers stormed through the room, shouting commands, knocking over equipment. Vanessa trembled violently beside him. A flashlight beam swept dangerously close to their hiding spot. Maya stood at the center of the chaos, hands raised, playing innocent. "Officers, what is this about? We're searching for Ethan Cole," the commander barked. "Well," Maya said coolly, "you won't find him here." The officer glared. "We'll see about that." They tore through the room, closing in. Flashlights inches away. Ethan braced for the moment they'd be discovered. Vanessa silently prayed, and then a sudden crashing noise erupted from the far corner of the bunker. Metal falling, alarms blaring. Kyle shouted, "Hey, that server's overheating." Every officer turned toward the sound. They rushed away from the racks. Ethan looked at Vanessa, stunned. Kyle winked. The diversion bought them seconds. Not minutes, seconds. Maya leaned close enough to whisper without being detected. "When I tell you to run, run, through the back tunnel. Don't stop." Ethan nodded. The chaos grew. Maya shouted, "Now!" and Ethan grabbed Vanessa's hand as they slipped into the dark hallway behind the servers. Just as officers turned back toward them, "Hey there!" footsteps thundered. Ethan and Vanessa ran through the tunnel, through the dark, toward the only hope they had left. The truth they now carried in their hands, and the war they could no longer escape. The tunnel behind the server racks was narrower than Ethan expected, barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through sideways. Pipes ran overhead, dripping condensation that hit the concrete with cold, rhythmic taps. The air smelled of rust and machinery, thick and metallic. Like the bowels of a forgotten factory, Vanessa clutched his hand tightly, her breathing shallow and fast. Behind them, the shouts of police officers echoed through the bunker, growing more chaotic. "Hurry, they went this way." The command ricocheted through the walls. Ethan pulled Vanessa forward. "Keep moving. Don't stop unless I tell you." Her voice trembled. "Where does this go?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But anywhere is better than back there." The tunnel sloped downward, making each step treacherous. Ethan could hear the pounding of heavy boots behind them now, muffled by the concrete but closing in. The officers were trained for this pursuit, confinement, strategy. Ethan felt the dread rising in his chest. Dread that this wasn't just about arrest anymore. Miranda had twisted the narrative so tightly that the police believed Vanessa was a victim and Ethan was her captor. The wrong move could get him killed. The tunnel eventually widened slightly, emptying into a larger maintenance corridor with old fuse boxes along the walls. Ethan scanned desperately for an exit. But there were no doors, no stairs, no visible way out. Vanessa's voice cracked. "We're trapped." "No, we're not." Ethan forced calm. Panic would get them caught. "There has to be something. Look." He ran his hand along the wall and found a metal hatch, bolted shut. He tried it. It didn't budge. "Can you open it?" she whispered. He braced his foot against the wall and pulled with all his strength. The metal groaned, but held firm. Sweat trickled down his spine. He tried again. Teeth bared in effort. Behind them, voices grew louder. "Check the maintenance wing." They couldn't have gone far. Vanessa pressed her palms together, visibly shaking. "Ethan, they're going to find us." He didn't respond. He couldn't afford to. His mind was desperately scanning every corner, every pipe, every hidden seam in the wall. Then he saw it. A vent cover, small, rusted, almost invisible beneath layers of grime. He crouched and pulled. The screws rattled and gave way. Behind it was a horizontal crawl space. "Get in," he said. Vanessa hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." "Go." Tears streaked down her cheeks. But she obeyed, squeezing into the space. Ethan followed, pulling the vent cover back loosely to mask their trail. They crawled forward on their elbows, the metal scraping their skin. Darkness pressed around them, the space tightening with every inch. Vanessa's breaths came in shallow bursts. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. Not because he didn't care, but because saving her required every ounce of focus he had. Behind them, the hallway filled with footsteps. Nothing down here. They must be What's this? A flashlight hit the vent cover. Ethan froze. "They went through here." Vanessa whimpered. Ethan placed a hand on her ankle to steady her. "Keep crawling," he whispered. "We're almost there." The officers began pulling at the vent cover. It screeched loudly as rusty screws snapped one by one. They were seconds away from being dragged out. But then light, a glimmer ahead, a grate at the end of the vent, a way out. Vanessa, kick it, Ethan urged. She twisted awkwardly and kicked once. The grate rattled. She kicked again. Harder. The metal snapped free. Cold night air rushed in. They spilled out onto a gravel slope behind the industrial complex. Ethan rolled to his feet, grabbed Vanessa's hand, and pulled her up. Shouts erupted behind them inside the vent. "They're outside, move!" Flashlights began sweeping the exterior. Ethan didn't think. He dragged Vanessa toward a line of pine trees bordering the lot. Their branches formed a dense canopy, nature's camouflage. They ducked under the low branches just as officers spilled out of the building. Spreading in formation, Vanessa pressed a shaking hand to her chest. "What do we do now?" "We keep moving," Ethan whispered. Toward the creek. They made their way through the trees until the sound of rushing water grew louder. The creek carved a winding path between warehouses and a collapsed fence. Ethan helped Vanessa over the broken chain links, and they slid down the embankment, feet splashing into the icy stream. "Are you sure?" Vanessa started, but Ethan cut her off. "Water hides footprints." They waded through the creek for nearly 10 minutes until the shouts behind them faded into the night. When they finally climbed out onto the far bank, Ethan's legs burned with exhaustion and cold, but he didn't stop. They pushed forward into a small residential area where houses were spaced far apart and streetlights flickered weakly. Only once they reached a darkened back porch of an empty house did Ethan finally let himself collapse into a crouch, chest heaving. Vanessa sank beside him, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. "I can't believe this. I can't believe she'd do this to me." "She did worse to my father," Ethan said, voice raw. Vanessa looked at him, guilt etched deep into her features. "Ethan, about that there's something I didn't tell you earlier." He didn't look at her. "What?" "My mother. She didn't destroy your father alone." Every muscle in Ethan's body tensed. Slowly, he turned his head. "What does that mean?" Vanessa stared at the boards of the porch, unable to meet his eyes. There was someone else involved, someone who helped fabricate evidence against him, someone who was promised a position in exchange for cooperation. Ethan's stomach sank. "Who?" Vanessa's voice was barely audible. "Marcus." The name hit him like a collapsing building. "Marcus Langford," Ethan whispered. Vanessa nodded. "He began working with my mother years ago, long before he and I were pushed together. Their partnership wasn't romantic at first. It was transactional. He helped her manipulate the financial reports around your father's shop. He created offshore accounts to make it look like your father was hiding money." Ethan stared at her in stunned silence. "And now," Vanessa continued, voice cracking, "he's not just an investor. He's fully intertwined with her projects. Their engagement, mine and his, is meant to finalize that alliance." Ethan felt sick. "So he's been part of this the whole time? Even before I met you?" "Yes," she whispered. "And he'll be ruthless now. If he knows we have those flash drives, he won't stop until he destroys us." Ethan stood abruptly and began pacing, pulling at his hair. Rage, betrayal, and disbelief churned inside him like fire and gasoline colliding. "We need to warn Maya," he said finally. Vanessa nodded. "We need to get out of sight first." But before they could plan their next move, a sound cut through the night. Tires rolling on gravel, a car approaching slowly. Ethan froze. Vanessa's breath hitched. They backed deeper into the shadows of the porch as headlights swept across the yard. For a terrifying moment, Ethan thought it was the police again, or Miranda's men. But when the car stopped and the door opened, a familiar voice whispered harshly, "Ethan, Vanessa, get in. Now." "Daniel." They ran to the car, ducking low. Ethan opened the door, ushered Vanessa inside before climbing in after her. Daniel hit the gas before the doors fully shut. Ethan gripped the seat. "How did you find us?" Daniel's jaw was tight. "Maya texted me before the police stormed the bunker. She said, If the blackout failed, you'd head toward the industrial creek. I drove the perimeter until I spotted movement. You're lucky I got there before they did. Vanessa shivered. Did they take Maya or Kyle? Daniel shook his head. Not sure. They might have detained them, or they might have let them go as a warning. Ethan clenched his fists. What now? Vanessa whispered. Daniel's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Now we assemble everything. We stabilize our story, and we get ready for the one thing Miranda Hart never planned for. Ethan leaned in. Which is? Daniel looked him dead in the eyes. The court battle she can't manipulate, one where the evidence speaks louder than her power. Ethan exhaled slowly. In that moment, exhaustion clashed with determination. He knew the road ahead was dangerous, possibly deadly, but he also knew something else. For the first time in decades, the Harts were vulnerable, and he, Ethan Cole, was the one thing they never anticipated. A survivor who refused to disappear. Kyle's backups, Daniel added. Voice grim, if he managed to make them before the raid. Those files could bring down an empire. Ethan stared out the window as the car sped through the darkness. For years he'd lived under a shadow he didn't understand. Now he understood it better than anyone, and he was done being afraid. Daniel drove without speaking for several minutes, navigating back roads and empty intersections, as if he already knew which routes were least likely to have police checkpoints. The night outside felt heavy, thick with tension, humming with danger. Ethan stared through the windshield, barely registering the passing streetlights. Vanessa sat between them in the back seat, hugging herself, her gaze fixed on the flash drive in Ethan's hand, as though it were both salvation and a curse. The silence stretched until Vanessa finally whispered, I keep thinking, what if they caught Maya? What if she's in custody because of me? Daniel shook his head. Maya knows how to handle herself, and if the police detained her, she would have called. She's more valuable to Miranda alive and quiet than gone. Ethan tried to reassure her. Maya's tough. She won't let Miranda break her. Vanessa swallowed hard, not convinced. The parking lot attack, the chase, the hidden files they had revealed just how unprepared she was for the monster her mother truly was. She had grown up inside Miranda's world but never understood its cruelty until now. Finally, Daniel pulled into a small, remote cabin deep in the woods, one Ethan recognized from stories Daniel once mentioned. A safe house he kept for emergencies. One no one else knew about. You'll be safe here for tonight, Daniel said, killing the engine. Safe, Vanessa whispered. How can we be safe anywhere when they're hunting us? Daniel leaned toward her. Because Miranda doesn't know I still own this place, and she doesn't know the access keys to the encrypted backups we made before the police arrived. He turned to Ethan. Kyle managed to finish a duplicate set and hid them before the raid. I picked them up. Ethan felt a weight lift off his chest, so the files aren't lost. No, Daniel said, but they're dangerous. The moment we reveal any of this, Miranda will go into full destruction mode. She knows if even a fraction of this reaches the courts or the media, she's finished. Criminally, financially, socially. Vanessa sank onto a worn sofa, trembling. She won't stop, Daniel. You don't know her like I do. She'll burn the entire city before she lets someone expose her. We're not giving her that choice, Ethan said quietly. He placed the flash drive on the coffee table between them, its tiny form glowing in the lamplight like the detonator to a bomb that had already begun ticking. Daniel took out Kyle's encrypted backups and lined them up beside it, between the audio, the emails, the memos, the project strategies. We have enough evidence to reveal a decade of corruption, but we need to build this case carefully. Miranda's lawyers are ruthless. If we make one wrong move, she'll twist the narrative, destroy the chain of custody, or claim fabrication. Ethan nodded. So what's the next step? We go public, Daniel said. But not yet. First, we need to establish your innocence. If the world still thinks you kidnapped Vanessa, the evidence won't matter. They'll assume you coerced her. Vanessa looked up sharply. Then I'll testify. I'll go to the police and tell them the truth. No, Daniel said immediately. You'll be detained, and they'll isolate you before you can speak to a lawyer. Miranda will get to you first. Vanessa's voice cracked. So what do we do? Maya's number flashed across Ethan's thoughts, her calm voice in chaos, her strategic mind. We need her, Ethan said. We need Maya to guide the legal process. Daniel nodded. If they didn't arrest her, Ethan clenched his jaw. Then we find her. They spent the next hour calling Maya, using a burner phone Daniel kept in the safe house. No answer. Ethan tried again. And again. Each ring was agony. Maybe she's hiding, Vanessa whispered. Or detained, Daniel said grimly. Ethan paced the room. No, she wouldn't leave us without a signal. She said she'd contact me if anything happened. She wouldn't stay silent unless she was... He stopped mid-sentence. Unless she was compromised. Before panic could settle, Daniel's burner phone buzzed. All three of them jumped. Daniel answered cautiously. Hello, a rushed voice whispered. Daniel, it's Maya. Ethan's knees nearly gave out. Vanessa clutched her hands together, whispering, Thank God. Where are you? Daniel asked. I got away, she whispered. Barely. They detained Kyle. I made it out through a side exit before the police blocked off the area. Ethan's stomach twisted. Is Kyle okay? He was alive when I last saw him, Maya said. But they took him. Miranda will interrogate him. We need to assume she has access to his systems already. Daniel exhaled. That's why the safe house is offline. No digital trace. Good, Maya said. Stay dark. I'm heading somewhere secure. I'll send coordinates once I'm safe. Is there anything else we should know? Ethan asked. There was a long pause. Too long. Then Maya's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. Miranda didn't just file a kidnapping accusation. She filed a protective order, preventing you from contacting or approaching Vanessa in any capacity. That's absurd, Vanessa snapped. I'm right here. It doesn't matter, Maya said. Legally, it paints Ethan as a threat to you, which means if you appear in public with him, even willingly, he can be arrested on sight. Vanessa pressed her hands over her mouth. Ethan felt the world tilt. So they're forcing us apart. They're trying to isolate you, Maya said. Classic tactic. Miranda knows you two together threaten her narrative. She's cutting communication threads so the moment you speak publicly, no one believes it. Daniel cursed under his breath. What do we do? Maya inhaled sharply. I need the backups. All of them. If Miranda gets control of the narrative first, this becomes unwinnable. They're safe, Daniel assured her. Good, Maya whispered. Then listen closely. There's only one way to counter Miranda's acceleration. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Tell us. You go to court before she does. Silence filled the room. Vanessa blinked. What does that mean? It means, Maya said, you file your own legal complaint first. A preemptive strike. If we frame the case correctly, if we present the evidence with proper timestamps and a clean chain of custody, the court will issue a stay order, preventing law enforcement from acting on the kidnapping accusation until the truth is evaluated. Will it work? Ethan asked. It's risky, Maya admitted. But it's the only move that traps Miranda instead of you. Daniel nodded slowly. We'll do it. Maya's voice softened. Ethan, you did nothing wrong, but the law doesn't care about truth. It cares about paperwork, timing, and who speaks first. Miranda knows that. So do we. We'll meet you, Ethan said. Wherever you are. I'll send coordinates in 30 minutes. She replied. Stay hidden, and Ethan, be ready. When we go to court, everything comes out. Everything. Once this starts, there's no turning back. I understand, Ethan said. He meant it. The call ended. The room felt heavier now. Not with fear, with purpose. Daniel pulled out a map of the city. Vanessa wiped her tears and stood straighter. Ethan felt something shift inside him, an anchor dropping, a resolve hardening. For weeks he'd been reacting, running, surviving. But now he had a plan. Allies, proof, and a chance to bring down the woman who'd destroyed 2 generations of his family. He looked at Vanessa. "Are you sure you want to do this?" She nodded, voice steady for the first time all night. "I'm done being her puppet." She took my father to his softness, his hope, his independence. "I won't let her take you." Ethan swallowed. Then Daniel spoke the words none of them dared say. "This ends soon. One way or another." They stayed awake until Maya's coordinates arrived. A courthouse. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight, at dawn, Ethan would walk into the lion's den with truth in his hands and a storm behind him. And Miranda Hart, queen of manipulation, the architect of destruction, would finally face the force she underestimated most. The truth she tried to bury. The courthouse loomed over the city, like a monument carved from old battles, its stone columns cold, towering, and indifferent to the fear of those who walked toward it. Dawn had barely begun to tint the sky, painting the horizon with muted streaks of gray and lavender. The world was quiet at this hour, but Ethan felt anything but calm. He stood beside Daniel and Vanessa in the shadow of the courthouse steps, hands buried in his jacket, pockets to steady their tremble. They wore nondescript clothing hoods, plain coats, dark pants not out of fear, but strategy. Miranda had eyes everywhere. Showing up unnoticed was their last advantage. Vanessa looked up at the courthouse, her breath visible in the cold morning air. "I never thought I'd come here to fight her." "You're not fighting her alone," Ethan said, voice steady despite everything inside him trembling. Daniel checked his watch. Maya should be here any minute. As if summoned by her own name, a black sedan turned onto the street. Slowing near the curb, a familiar figure stepped out. Maya, composed despite exhaustion, tightening her features, she carried a briefcase so tightly it seemed fused to her hand. She approached fast. "We don't have much time." Miranda's lawyers filed additional motions overnight. "They're moving aggressively." "What kind of motions?" Ethan asked. "The kind meant to crush you before sunrise," Maya replied. "A petition for a permanent restraining order, an emergency injunction transferring control of your land to a holding company, and a sealed complaint implying you're mentally unstable." Vanessa's expression twisted with disgust. "How is she doing all this? At 4 a.m? She doesn't sleep when she's threatened," Maya said. "But neither do I." She gestured toward the courthouse doors. "I've prepared a counterfiling. It includes the initial evidence, a sworn affidavit from me, and a sealed protective request. Once we submit this, the court must halt her motions until a hearing is set." "And what about the kidnapping accusation?" Ethan asked. Maya's eyes sharpened. "That depends on Vanessa." Vanessa stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. And I'll argue," Maya said. That Miranda's accusation was a retaliatory tactic to silence a potential whistleblower. "Is that enough?" Ethan asked. "It will be," Maya said. "Once we file the full evidence packet," she took a breath. "We're about to hit her where she's weakest." "Documented truth," Ethan nodded. "Let's do it." They entered the courthouse, the cold marble floors echoing under their footsteps. The building felt still, suspended in early morning quiet, as if the walls themselves were waiting to witness something historic. Inside, Maya led them to a small clerk's office, where legal filings were time-stamped. A single clerk sat behind the counter, sipping an oversized coffee, half asleep. Maya approached with confidence. "I need to file these motions immediately." The clerk blinked, startled at the volume of documents Maya placed in front of him. Everything here?" "Yes. And I need confirmation copies." As the clerk processed the filings, each stamp felt like a hammer hitting Miranda's empire. Ethan watched the papers disappear into the official archives, irreversible, untouchable. Protected by the court's system, once the last stamp fell, Maya exhaled. "It's done." But the relief was short-lived, because the courthouse doors slammed open behind them. 2 lawyers swept in, accompanied by 3 sharply dressed security personnel. The first lawyer, a tall man with a predatory stare, spotted Maya immediately. "Ms. Green," he said coolly, Fancy seeing you here. Maya didn't flinch. Mr. Lowell. Lowell's expression tightened. You're interfering in a delicate matter involving the Hart family. No, Maya corrected. I'm preventing abuse of the legal system. Lowell's cold gaze flicked to Ethan. Mr. Cole? You are in violation of a protective order. There is no valid order, Maya snapped. We filed counter motions that supersede your client's tactics. Lowell smirked. We'll see what the judge says. He motioned to a woman behind him, Miranda Hart's second attorney. She stepped forward with a malicious smile. Ms. Hart is willing to settle, she said. If Ethan signs a transfer of his land and agrees to a cease and desist regarding her daughter, Vanessa stepped forward. I'm not her property. The attorney's smile faded. Vanessa, your mother is worried sick. Stop lying, Vanessa said, voice breaking but strong. She wants to silence me. Lowell's eyes narrowed. Careful, young lady. You're walking into defamation. Defamation, Ethan barked. She tried to have us killed. Lowell waved a dismissive hand. Baseless claims. Maya stepped directly between them. We'll let the court decide. The lawyers turned away, but not before Lowell delivered one last quiet threat. You're playing with giants, Mr. Cole, and giants don't fall. He walked off. Maya let out a long breath. We need to leave. Now, before they escalate. They exited through a side hallway. The morning sun was rising, and the courthouse interior was starting to fill with attorneys and clerks. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Every second mattered now. Outside, Maya stopped abruptly. We're not safe here anymore. Where do we go? Vanessa asked. Neutral ground, Maya replied. Someplace public enough to prevent confrontation, but private enough to plan our next move. But before they could take another step, a voice broke through the air like a crack of thunder. Ethan Cole, don't move. They spun around. Police officers, 5 of them, blocking the stairs. Weapons not drawn, but hands poised near holsters. Vanessa froze. No, please. Ethan lifted his hands slowly, heart pounding. Officers, please. There's been a misunderstanding. The lead officer stepped forward. Turn around. Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest. Maya squeezed Ethan's arm. Don't resist. Let me handle this. Daniel positioned himself protectively beside Vanessa. Ethan swallowed. May I ask what the warrant is for? The officer's expression was flat. Practiced. Harassment, defamation, and violation of a protective order. Vanessa stepped forward. He didn't violate anything. I'm here of my own. Ma'am, the officer said calmly. We've been informed you're under duress. That's not true, Vanessa cried. My mother lied. Ma'am, the officer repeated. Please step back. Vanessa looked helplessly at Ethan. Tears forming. Maya spoke sharply. Officers, filings were submitted minutes ago that override. They're not processed in the system yet, the lead officer said. Our orders stand. Ethan felt something break inside him. Not fear, not anger, but a calm acceptance. This was Miranda's final play. Her last attempt to break him before the truth hit the world. He turned toward Maya. Do it, he whispered. She nodded, understanding instantly. Vanessa grabbed Ethan's arm. Please don't go, please. This is my fault. I never should have. He placed a hand over hers, gently removing her grip. This isn't your fault. None of it. Ethan, listen to me. His voice trembled, but he forced the words out steady. You're free now. You get to choose who you are, what you stand for. Don't let her take that from you again. Vanessa sobbed. I'm scared. So am I, Ethan said. But we're not alone. Not anymore. Daniel stepped forward. We'll get you out. I swear it. Ethan nodded. Then he faced the officers. I'm ready. They cuffed him gently, not like a criminal, but like someone they weren't sure they understood. As they led him toward the police car, Ethan heard Maya's voice carry after him, sharp and unbreakable. This isn't over. He didn't look back, but he felt it. The truth was coming, and when it arrived, Miranda Hart's empire would not survive the light. In the end, the story wasn't just about betrayal or corruption. It was about the quiet resilience that grows inside someone who has been beaten down again and again, yet still finds the strength to rise. Ethan learned that justice is rarely swift and almost never clean, but it becomes possible the moment we refuse to let fear dictate our choices. Vanessa discovered that breaking free from a lifetime of control requires courage far greater than obedience, and together they prove that truth, when protected, fought for, and spoken boldly, can dismantle even the most powerful lies. Their fight reminds us that we must never underestimate the power of standing up, especially when standing up means standing alone first. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more powerful journeys like this. Your voice matters here.